Oh, continue. Okay. So what character? I'll say Penny Proud from the Proud family. That's like one of the one of the few animated series I've actually watched other than like Bebe's Kids growing up. Um, so I'll say Penny Proud, she was a teen girl, like, kind of studious, and that's what I identified as a little rebellious. So that was definitely me as a teen. Do you identify with being as a nerd? I don't think so. I don't think I'm a nerd. But I don't know. Nerd culture is kind of hard to define for me. I think it's like there's like a intellectual, like, I guess, undertones in it, like super super duper smart, but also being like obsessed with, like, or having like a niche obsession with a lot of things, like a computer nerd who real good at computers or really good at gaming or really good at like knowing all the characters and cartoons. And I don't know if I have like those kind of like niche specialties in terms of like I know all these like cool areas of stuff. So that's what I think of like nerd culture, and I don't think I fit in any of those. Um, yeah. So popcorn. Let me see. Um, did Lamar go? Did Lamar go already? Lamar already went.
Yes, I already went. Yes.
Oh yeah, you just went. Right, right, right. Did Andre? Andre.
Yes.
Okay, Justice.
I think an anime, I mean, or animated character that I resonate with is Iroh. Like Iroh was pretty, like Iroh from Avatar: The Last Airbender. I think Iroh really resonated with me with like his wisdom and how his approach to things and like how his character development was pretty strong in terms of like finding peace within himself and really trying to educate, and help guide I his grandson really like how to like find himself, because Zuko had like a rough past, but I don't really necessarily identify as a nerd per se. Um, though, like, I mean, I guess I could get like really geeky, because like geeky is more like, you're set on a particular like show, like Game of Thrones, or even like a genre like anime. So like I could probably like but not so much, I guess. Like, so I don't know. I don't know. I don't really identify as a nerd. But the nerd culture, I definitely give kudos to them, because to have like to be really well rounded and to be more knowledgeable is really key, in any like field, I guess. Oh, who? I guess I'll pass it to Nickel Benjamin.
Hello? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Uh,
Hey.
um, what's up, guys? An anime character that I'll compare myself to is, I'll say Miles Morales myself, because of how he he grew up with, well, by himself. So grew up by himself with his mom and dad, and it seemed as if from the movie he didn't really talk much to them, and they always talked a lot about him doing big things, and then he didn't really realize like the amount of fun he can have while doing these big things until he met the other Spider-Mans. And that's how I feel like I relate to him, because I never know if I want to do stuff as until somebody tells me to do it, or I see somebody do it and it's fun. And as I would call myself a tech nerd, most likely, because I do like the hardware of most technologies, especially computers. And I'll pick I joined like halfway, so did Keanu get picked already?
Not yet, but he's been waiting.
Okay, I'll pick Keanu.
Well, I actually introduced myself in the chat, but I can give y'all a formal introduction. Name's Keanu. Honestly, I'm a nerd, 100%. I'm gonna admit. I see myself as all these anime protagonists, like Midoriya from My Hero Academia, or any of the Yu-Gi-Oh protagonists. And I'm not talking about the regular Yu-Gi-Oh. I'm talking about Yu-Gi-Oh GX, Yu-Gi-Oh 5Ds, Yu-Gi-Oh Zexal, all the other Yu-Gi-Oh stuff. And reason why I identify myself as a nerd is because, well, I still play nerd games to this day. They call me the king of games for no reason. By the way, I'm calling some people out in Yu-Gi-Oh! Once we go back in person. And once I get my grades up.
There it is. Once you get your grades up.
And all that stuff.
Cool. If you had, so real quick, Keanu, can you define nerd culture in your own words?
What happened?
Could you define the last question? So what is nerd culture to you?
Nerd culture to me is like, there's a few ideas. Playing your hobby, well, playing your game, cosplaying, voice acting, playing some more games, and doing some more cosplays, which, by the way, I might start doing some cosplays soon, so y'all should get ready and follow me on the gram.
What's your, real quick, plug your Instagram and then we're gonna move on.
There's gonna be a lot of cosplays coming up.
Plug it, plug your IG real quick.
My Instagram?
Yep.
You know what, I'll text it in the chat.
Cool. But so does anyone really, yeah, that's cool, Keanu. Does anyone else really have a burning desire? Because it's so beautiful to see all of y'all, and I don't know if we can, get to everyone without, cutting some of the time on the back end of the presentation. So does anyone else have a burning desire that you have to go? There's space for you.
I mean, I'll go if I want, if you guys want.
Please, yeah, please go ahead.
Name what Black or non-Black characters in animation do you identify with? I can definitely go with Berserk. Only relation-wise, other than the goriness of it all, but the just the strive that he has, being a loyal friend, striving to do good things for himself, no matter how bad things are in life. Trouble comes looking for you. Sometimes you try to stay out of trouble, and you can be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I think that was his whole story. The story's not even over for him. But it just shows that some people are raised differently, can be looked at bad. The same thing with like the Joker, and stuff like that. And you don't know somebody's background and how the outcome could be or change from knowing where they come from. So I think I relate to him in that aspect. Do I identify myself as a nerd? Why not? I do. I think that's what everything is now. I think if you look at hip hop and the urban culture, they took a definite depth of rock and roll and nerdiness and adapted it to something that we always wanted to do. You look at some of these rappers now, that some people can make fun of jokes like Bart Simpson, or like how Japanese spiked hair, mohawks and faux hawks are colored hair is all like, bouncing around. I think it's cool. I think creativity and art has always been something that us nerds have been involved in. We may get this like detailed picture of us in glasses with these big goggles on and think that we sit in a computer, but that's not necessarily a nerd at all. I think that is just a totally different definition of a person. I think nerds have the most, if not popular, creativity of art and music and things that we do. I mean, if you look at Skrillex, things like that. So yeah, I do identify myself as a nerd. I think the nerd culture is part of the pop culture and urban culture as well. And that's about it for me.
Yo, that's the dope. That was a dope answer. What's your name?
Gabriel
Gabriel
Serrano.
Oh, Gabriel, what's up, man? Cool.
What's going on, bro? I couldn't get in earlier because I dropped the glass bottle and I was trying to clean it while you guys were talking. So my bad.
Hope cool. So that's a dope question. Also, going back to Keanu's question, then I'm going to turn back over to Marquice. What do we think of can white or people who identify as white or Caucasian go to cosplays as Black or brown characters? Wow, I'm curious to hear Marquise's thoughts on that. But let's turn it back over to Marquice.
I'm gonna say, of course, you can dress up as a character without changing your skin color. I mean, unless that character is like blue, green, or orange, then like go ahead, change it green if you want. But if the character is of a darker tan, you don't need to be a darker tan color to display that. I just had a friend who dressed up as Helga from Hey Arnold. And of course, like she didn't put on white paint to be Helga, but we knew that the pink dress and the white shirt, that she was Helga. And it was authentic. So you can be authentic in representing this character without changing your skin tone. And then I want to go off of what Gabriel said, because he has some dope stuff. So I shared that same thing into one of my Facebook groups, and I got some of like what is nerd culture to them and everything like that. And Gabe has said some interesting things. One, I identify as Midoriya. I know somebody else mentioned it as well. The reason why I picked him, I think I'm an overthinker. Sometimes if anybody watches My Hero Academia, we know that in battles, when it's not time to overthink, he will analyze every single situation to find out what outcome. If he moves left, what's going to be the outcome? If he moves right, what's going to be the outcome? And that can literally be me. I think Corey can even justify. I called Corey up about 11 o'clock at night yesterday, like, Corey, like, what's going to happen if I move like this tomorrow? So I definitely think I identify as Midoriya when it comes to analyzing every little detail. And then as far as like nerd culture, it's expanding. We see it in hip hop, we see it on TV. Megan Thee Stallion just did a partnership with Mortal Kombat, where she and the character Melina, she was playing as Melina online, I believe. I didn't watch it, but I did see a poster of like Megan Thee Stallion and Melina, so I'm pretty sure that she got a chance to play or stream Mortal Kombat playing as Melina. And then honestly, nerd culture is just anything that's popular. So I identify nerd culture as something popular. So you can be a sneakerhead. You have so much knowledge within sneakers, like that makes you a nerd. Like the same thing as someone who wakes up, let's see, this last November, people was waking up, sitting outside of Walmart, sitting outside of GameStop for that PS5. Those same people do the same for Jordans. Those same people, some people collect records. So like nerd culture, it's just whatever you have a passion about, and at least to me, and not necessarily what is like this whole animation, Dragon Ball Z, Pokemon, Power Rangers, things like that. So we're going to have three topics within this. We're going to be talking about Blackness, like what is Blackness to us? Like how do we see Blackness? How do we know something is Black? We're going to be analyzing animated characters. I have 3 characters, and then we're going to be exploring tokenism as we navigate through this power presentation. So the first question, and you can, if you would like to go, everyone's not mandated to go, but if you'd like to go, just put in the chat. Me and Corey can call on people. The first question is, how would you identify Blackness? So how would you, as a person, identify Blackness? Like if you've seen it on TV, how would you say, oh, that's Black?
Anybody else want to go?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Y'all see me?
Yep.
I was gonna say, like when I'm like watching like a TV show or something, like the main thing that makes me think black when I see a character is the hairstyle. Like I'm feeling like an afro, dreads. It's not like a nappy hair. That's what like I really think that's a black person.
All right, I take that. Anyone else want to add?
I could go. I think Blackness itself is like more so like African American culture, and kind of like the upbringing and like of like our music, traditions and so forth, or even like the struggle, and also like how we kind of came to be, right? So like, cause like I say specifically African American because like this concept of black versus white or black and white and stuff like that is really came from like the United States, because outside of that we really categorize ourselves as such. But yeah, I think like when I would like look at TV, I would definitely say like someone who can definitely understand like our struggles, or we could definitely say that that's me, or I could kind of like see the resemblance or like resonate with that person or like that show or something like that.
All right. Anyone else before we move on to the next question?
Yeah, I just want to say I'm glad that I don't know if a lot of y'all know, but a lot of like if you watch X-Men and you look at Professor X and Magneto, they were actually supposed to be like a Martin Luther King and a Malcolm X. They were never supposed to be white characters. And a lot of people don't know the history of that. And it's fascinating how those both leaders were admired for so long, and a lot of people skipped over those historic histories. Now I'm hoping that the next X-Men that does come out, that they actually just go full length and do it, because that would be more inspiration. The same way I look at Wolverine being an immigrant. A lot of people don't know that he's from Canada. And I think that'd be cool if they have him like a Puerto Rican character or something like that. So I don't want to put that out there. I think that's interesting to come out and see.
All right. And then I just wanted to add on to that when we was talking about just characters who were supposed to be a certain race. I don't know if anyone knows this, if anyone watches Ninja Turtles. What's the girl's name? My mind is drawing a blank. Is it April, right?
April O'Neil.
Yeah, April O'Neil. Like she was supposed to be a black girl. In the original comics, she was as a black girl, but of course back then there wasn't color. But if you look at artwork of her, that is of a black woman. And then once comics started becoming in color, and then once the TV shows came out, they just ran with it and created her as a white woman, but she originally was supposed to be a black woman. All right. And then I guess we already defined it, but then this is the second question, like what makes media black? And the reason why I'm asking this question is because there's so much media out there. And I had this conversation before with my friend Danielle that's here. And it's like, do we take these characters as this is black? Does it necessarily need to be the director that makes something black? So like if the characters are black, but the directors, the writers, the screen correctors, and all of these people are white, is that still black media? But what if the writers were black and the characters was white? Is that black media? So like what makes media black to any of you?
I mean, I want to hop in. I know Danielle looks like she wants to say something too. But so I have questions more than an answer.
Okay.
If Black folk created an art form, does that mean it is ours and other people operate within that space, but they're not so like for instance, Jack Harlow. I was listening to someone say, yo, Jack Harlow's nice. Like he's a good freestyler. I was like, yeah, he's good. Like he's, operating in this genre created by Black folk, by Black and brown folk. Would I consider Jack Harlow Black media though, is a different question, because I think the person has to identify. So what does the person identify as that's creating the media? I think would be my question to get the answer. But I don't know. What do you think, Danielle?
You saw me over here making faces, and it was because I was
did.
like, darn, that's a good question. And that's something I think about all the time. Like, and I don't even think I have like a straight answer to, because I don't know. I think it's complicated. I think part of it could be like the audience. Who is your intended audiences? Are you creating it for Black people too? I think also like the messages, like when we're talking about like African culture and like the roots and grounding of African culture, do they have like African mythology? How will African people understand spirituality, and how we are like Black people are like matriarchs, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, do we have like these like cultural markers of Black people? I think that, and then the who the audience is for is also like, I think it's telling of like what makes something Black media for me. And I think when you're talking about like these cultural markers, in order to like it being like very, I guess I'll say like accurate in terms of like being rooted in that Black mythology type stuff, I think a lot of the times they do end up being Black writers. But not saying that that's 100% of the time, but yeah. So that's my answer.
All right, and then Danielle, so I have another question, and this is for anybody. So there's a TV show, there's a cartoon. It's called Craig by the Creek on Cartoon Network. It's about a Black family. The main character is Black, his family is Black. The creators are white. But there are drops of Blackness. Like one day, I believe it was the mom, she had a H sweater. So it was like she had a sweater with Howard on it. They had a Kwanzaa episode. But like these people that created this show, the creators are white. So is that still a Black show? And if it is, like, is that pandering to Black people? Because you as white people created this show, but there's no creative person at that table reflects Howard or Kwanzaa, but y'all created this show for Black people. So the audience, like you said, is Black.
Oh, I got a question, because I consider myself to be like an artist or whatever you want. I'm an artist. So, and I had this, like you said, does that make that a Black show? I'm gonna answer your question first. I just like, why can't it just be called a show? You know, I feel like we try to put everything in a box and make everything seem like this is Black, this is white. Why can't it just be like, I was talking about, like, is Black Panther a Black movie? Like, when it was in the comics, is it a Black story? Like The Wiz, is that a Black movie? It's just a movie. Like, I don't know. I can get worked up about it. I just like, I feel like Kanye, when I get into this, like, man, we need to appreciate the art. They don't appreciate the art, man. It's just art, man. Just appreciate, just take it in, man. Like, I don't know, man, but I think that's cool that, you know, from years, white people been looking in on us, been like, why not make a show based on Black people, you know? Like Uncle Curry, I was talking to Uncle Curry about, I was like, Uncle Curry, we should talk about blackface. I wrote this because I went to school at Lower Merion, and we was watching Amos and Andy and all that stuff, like in this little circle Black group, and we had to just watch it. And I'm just like, I did a little research about blackface, and it was like, white people would go to plantations and look at the slaves when they would work, and the slaves would be like singing and dancing and stuff like that. And then they'd be like, what? Yo, it would be like northern middle class to poor class white people who would just put on blackface and put on an interpretation of what they thought we were. And I started looking at that, and I was like, these people aren't making fun of us. I mean, that's how I looked at it. They're actually trying to be Black. And it's like, damn, like, am I really mad at that? Because that could have been, I mean, blackface initially was our first ticket into the mainstream media, like our first ticket into Hollywood. So, and then I was like, I would ask my friends, like, how you feel about Black people who would do blackface? Because it was like actual Black people who'd be up on stage in blackface with a black face, and they just be up on stage playing instruments and just being extra, like just to set, like, be that trailblazer. But I think it's just art. I think people need to just appreciate it for what it is, and it is what it is.
I want to jump.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Are you sure?
Yeah, no. Go ahead. I just wanted to jump in on the topic. Go ahead. You go ahead first.
Okay. I wanted to. I agree with what Marquis said to a certain like degree about how it is just I would say a show or a cartoon. No, because I look at it as if the show is created and produced by Caucasian writers and producers and directors, but has black characters, I would just call that a show, but I wouldn't call it a black show. And I equate that with a business or a company. You know, if a company that is owned by Caucasian people, but they may sell products that has Black Lives Matter symbols on them, or they may sell some type of products that cater to Black people. You know, that's not a Black business if it's not owned by Black people. And so I would say, I wouldn't say that it's a black cartoon. I would, or show. I would just label it as a show. That's what I would say.
Corey had wanted to say something, and then
I was muted.
Oh.
I'm used to. Go ahead.
No, my fault. So no, what I was saying to Corey in the chat was, I feel like black media, when we say black media, I think about the black dollar, black culture, what we portray as a people. So for example, the gentleman said that people may paint in blackface and it may not be black. These people are trying to be black, but I feel like black people can't sometimes identify with that. So when I wrote in the chat, the show Girlfriends, Girlfriends written by Kelsey Grammer, white man. I believe he was in either Cheers or something like that.
Yep.
But black women identify with that show. It's a great show that black women identify with. If you ask some black people, they would say that show was black culture. But technically, this man isn't a black person. So when I thought about it, I was thinking about what do we identify with? So in our community, we identify with struggle. We identify with pain. We identify with UPN definitely had the hits. We identify with overcoming things. So when I think about things like that, like the other gentleman said, is Black Panther a black movie? To me, I would, because when we think about being black, we think about representation, that we're represented in Marvel. When we think about being black, we think about, in that movie, not to get too much into it, a young black man losing his father to his uncle and having to come up, be successful, but just wanting to be accepted and wanting to be a part of a culture that was robbed of him. That's what black people identify with. So, I mean,
cut off.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Oh, you good?
Oh no. So in my thing, I just feel like Black culture or Black media, in a sense, can be definitely things that are written by us, made by us. Like you think about somebody like a director like Ryan Coogler, who just made Judas and the Black Messiah and Black Panther. Yes, I would consider that Black media because it's written by us for us. But then when I also think about it, I think about Black media is the culture. Black media is what sets us apart from other races and what we've come from and what we've done. So in a sense, it's not like the right answer. It's just more so my opinion is what we identify with.
Indeed. Marquice, I did see Ty's hand go up. I don't know if you can see that on your end, but.
All right, yeah, so we'll let Ty and then Theo, and then we can move
on. I think in terms of like whether or not, kind of with the conversation of can Black media come from like non-Black creators, I think it can, just because, I mean, we look at like how media was created, you know, a decade ago, and you don't see many, you know, Black creators in media, especially on like television, but we do see media that was able to portray, you know, Black characters, and it kind of goes further than that with any form of representation. I feel like obviously Black creators are going to have a better job of like representing Black characters and Black individuals in media. But I feel like restricting Black characters and so on and so forth to only Black creators, we're going to find ourselves in a position where Black representation is something that can only be done so often. You know, I think, for example, like with anime, you have this really weird phenomenon where every time a Black character comes up, it's almost always a stereotype. But at the same time, if you let them kind of explore the medium of how they can represent Black culture, you're going to start seeing more Black characters that kind of are more diverse, are represented better. It becomes normalized. The best way to like normalize a certain culture is to push it through media as something that's not like outlandish and odd, but just a normal part of everyday life.
on. All right, Theo.
What I would say about us in media, like media, I would say that it's important for us to see ourselves depicted in a good light, as competent, successful, intellectual, also represents struggle. But I think it's important that not only do we produce and create our own media, but also have our own stars acting it. I say that because I think it shows like, you know, wasn't around for its heyday, like the Cosby Show. What else? I forgot it. Different World. And stuff like Boondocks. Those are things I feel like, I don't know, that's undeniably our culture. That's something that can't be taken. Also something that's powerful because it comes from us. That's not doing explanation justice, but yes, I feel like that's, I don't know, it's just, yeah. I'll let you know when I have something.
All right, and the reason why I'm sorry, I was reading the chat. The reason why I brought that up, because we're going to be analyzing 3 characters, right? So these 3 characters we're going to be analyzing, none of them were created by Black people. These characters aren't Black. Their skin in this isn't brown, isn't a tan color, isn't any of that, right? So these people created these characters, and we as Black people internalize what we see, and thus we label these characters who aren't in the human race as Black. So it's important that we had to have a conversation of what Blackness is, have a conversation about what Black media is, just to see how we internalize it before we have a chance to analyze these characters. So if you aren't familiar with the first character we're going to analyze would be Piccolo from Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z is a very popular show, right? So anybody who said they were were well-rounded in anime may know, I should say, that a lot of the nerd community, a lot of the blurred community, that's Black nerds, they claim Piccolo. We as Black nerds, we claim Piccolo. They say Piccolo is us. So I do want to share some clips and some videos, pictures of Piccolo, and then just have some people's opinions. Is Piccolo this character that's not Black, that's not the human race? Is he Black to you? Yes, why, no, why? I'm very interested in people's opinions.
Are we talking about Piccolo? Saying if he's Black or not?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I would think, I mean, when I grew up watching the old school Dragon Ball Z, the new one kind of seems cliche right now, but I still watch it. I have to say, I always looked at him as like my Black uncle, like, you know, in a sense, in a sensei way. But yeah, I think he stuck out. Not only one because he was green, but like just the way he actually carried himself. I know a lot of the Black cultures have a certain you know, style where, you know, it's kind of like, that's what people, I guess you call it a little prejudice or whatever, but they kind of look at somebody and say, this is the way this person carries himself or the way he walks and talks. Sort of came off more like an Afro samurai, especially when, what's that one movie or that one cartoon, The Boondocks came out and actually had, what's his name? Jack the Samurai or whatever. Or Afro the Samurai, I forgot what the anime is. I really forget it. But even when that came out, it kind of even insisted on that. The thing is that I think with anime and when it tries to explain certain race or certain cultures, a lot of the Black community and Hispanics on top of that, I'm mixed, so I see it all, man. I think a lot of the styles is we do own something. We do want something that's us, because especially now that it's awakening and it's exposed, especially when Michael B tried to be Human Torch, or the fact that I forgot this other movie character that was African American was Domino from Deadpool. That got underrated and undernoticed. I thought it was awesome. You know, when I watched the movie, I was like, good, but you heard a lot of people who kind of, I probably wasn't racist, but they kind of brought that out of how they explained, oh, this person cannot change color or this and that. But it's kind of like, it was pretty sad to, you know, to see those commentaries about that. I was definitely one who was all over the debate about it. I'm outspoken. I don't bite my tongue, and I was pretty kind of glad that Disney, Marvel, and I hope Dragon Ball Z, when the movie comes out, introduces more of African culture, characters, actors. I mean, if I could sit back and just put one thing out, I mean, if I ask somebody who's their top 3 favorite actors, I guarantee you one of them's got to be Black. Denzel Washington, Will Smith, whoever you want to characterize it as. But I think, yeah, when I look at Piccolo and I see somebody playing him in the movie, I would say I hope to God it's a Black actor, not somebody else, because I think that would be more carried on. So that's all I got to say about that. I look at it in that way.
All right. Anyone else want to add to whether or not we should claim Piccolo?
I can go on the Piccolo topic real fast. I would definitely say I'm gonna keep it short. I would definitely say Piccolo is definitely Black. Just because in that show, I think besides a person in that show, that only person that probably be Black was like Mr. Popo, for people who are into that. And like he was kind of like blackface, but I think Piccolo embodied what Black people are about in that show. Very strong will, very persistent, very strong people. And to be honest with you, I feel like Piccolo, even though he was green, similar to like, say like a Skeeter on Doug, even though he was green, people kind of know like he represented Black people on the show. And I think Black people that watch the show identified with him. And like you said, in that sense of Sensei, like he was at one point the main character's equal. Like at one point, him and Goku were the two strongest people on the show until they started getting into like the Saiyan race, not thinking too much into the show. So in my opinion, just to keep it short, yes, I always say Piccolo is definitely Black.
One person who I want to push, challenge by choice, of course, Aponte. Aponte seems to be having some emotions. I don't know one way or the other, Aponte, but if you want to speak, you don't have to, of course. But I want to hear your thoughts. Did he just leave?
I think he on mute, or he got his headphones in. I see him talk. His lips move.
I have my headphones on mute. Hello.
Wait.
Okay, so on the topic of Piccolo, I think at some point I did consider him Black, and then on another spectrum, I had to remember that it's like he's not human. He's a Namekian, but it's easy to identify with him. It's so simple, especially when it comes to Black culture. How, like they said, how he carried himself. He always stayed strong. He also always cared about the people, and it was just a whole factor with that. It's hard to say. I can't truly say. I'm not going to call him Black. I'm not going to claim him either because I can't do that. There are many groups that probably can feel the same way about Piccolo like we do as well. But in the overall spectrum of it, no, to me, he's just a green Namekian. But he can definitely identify. We can definitely identify him so easily. That's the only thing I can say about that.
Right. I did say so. Somebody put in the chat that Piccolo was definitely invited to the cookout and was leaving with 2 plates.
Sure.
The reason why I picked Piccolo is because it's a strong battle within blur culture if Piccolo is Black, and I can see why we would want to claim Piccolo, because there's a lot of stereotypes that Piccolo embody that we internalize. So as you can see, there were a lot of people in Dragon Ball Z. There's been times where they had streetwear, so that's why I have that picture up, right? Piccolo was swagged out. Piccolo had the hat on backwards. He had the jersey on. Piccolo was he was looking like he was from Fresh Prince. He was looking like he would have been Will Smith, in this picture. So, of course, Black people, we see that as swag. We see if this character got swag, he got to be us. One of the other things is he's green, right? And so he is a minority within the community of the Dragon Ball Z land. Everyone else is more of a yellowish, tannish color, and he stands out because he's green. I feel like that consciously we connect with him because of that, because we stand out as minorities. We live in a world that's not ours in a sense, as we know that we make up 13% of the population of the United States. So being the minority group within the United States, and we see Piccolo as a minority within Dragon Ball Z, we can claim him. And that's what some people do. Another thing I've seen is that people say he showed Gohan tough love, like Piccolo's an embodiment of what a Black father would be. He raised Gohan, he showed him tough love, and that's what people would embody if they seen a Black father figure give their child love. And then finally, as somebody mentioned, he's a Namekian, right? He's not from the same place as Gohan, Goku, so he's outside of his home territory. So for a lot of Africans of the diaspora, African Americans, Haitians, Jamaicans, we are not in our home territory as well. So I think that's a clear reflection on how we as the African diaspora may feel when we observe not being in our home territory and Piccolo not on his home territory. He does yearn for the chance, the opportunity to return home. And some of us may do the same thing. We're gonna move on to the next character. It's funny that someone mentioned Skeeter. So Skeeter from Pork Chop, this boy was also not the normal skin color, as we can see. He was very much blue, but I would love to hear from certain people, like, why do you think, not necessarily you, but why do you think people may have claimed Skeeter as black? Or, and then if you feel like we shouldn't, why do you think we should not claim Skeeter as black?
I have more of like a statement, not a direct answer to that. That applies to, I think, this in general. I don't like that. I don't like the otherization of Black folk when it comes to, you know who this show is for, and we're gonna add a Black character just to add some color, you know, add some sprinkle. Because why does I'm not sure the character's name. Don't come at me. Don't come at me. But I didn't really watch Dragon Ball Z. So what's his name again? Piccolo.
Piccolo.
I don't know
yeah.
why. Why does Piccolo have to be some alien of a green color? Why can't he just like be on screen black? If that's what you mean, say it.
And
Similarly
Corey, there were actually dark skinned, like Black characters within the Dragon Ball Z universe. As someone mentioned, they may have been very stereotypical blackface, extremely dark skin with the big red lips, the white eyes, but there were Black characters within this Dragon Ball Z universe, and some weren't in like the negative portrayal for us to claim, but we still, you know, claim the Piccolo. So I don't mean to cut you off, but
nah, but even in the picture with the Post Boy shirt and the white girl, like it reminds me of that image of LeBron James holding that white actress and how they like replicated that with King Kong holding that white girl. It's almost like you're saying, yeah, they might have these Black characters, but they are over stereotyped. Or even with Skeeter, like, you know who the show is for because the main character is white. Everyone else is just like sprinkles added on for flavor, not really for you, but just so you know. I don't know. I just don't like the complete otherization of making us seem alien like and not of this world in order to get, you know, include us. Just include us without that whole, I don't know, extra tinge, but I digress.
Perfect. Danielle, while other people are collecting their thoughts, I am going to challenge you to say what you said about Skeeter. She had some strong input on why we shouldn't say Skeeter is Black.
Don't do this. Don't put me on the spot. But since you did, yeah, I don't. You know, I told you I'm not a cartoon person, but I remember, you know, watching. What is it, Doug?
Yep, this is Doug.
Okay, yeah. So I remember watching it here and there, but I never got Blackness from the character, like at all. Like there was like nothing that like remotely, like I guess, gave me signals of Blackness. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, and y'all can tell me why y'all thought. But I've seen people like, yeah, he kind of looked Black. Like, look his nose, and I'm like, that's all Black people noses don't look like that. I've seen like he kind of like Screech from Saved by the Bell. Like I could see resemblance there, but I don't really see him necessarily like looking like a Black character. So I never saw really like, yeah, that's all I got to say. I don't know. Is it the basketball thing? Like I think people, I guess like, yeah, rest in peace, Screech. But yeah, I think people like associating Skeeter with like Blackness is very based in heavily based in like stereotypes of Black people, which I'm like, it's kind of like a reflection of how I guess we see Blackness when we're putting Blackness onto certain characters.
All right, and then I want to piggyback on what you said as far as us seeing Skeeter as a Black person based on these stereotypes. So growing up, I'm not going to admit, I saw Skeeter and I'm like, yo, Skeeter is Black. Although we see Patty Mayonnaise clearly in this picture, Patty Mayonnaise is like of a tan, of a brown color. Like that's like, so they are able to make Black characters because Patty Mayonnaise is right there. Skeeter is like this bluish green person, but like I saw him as Black. And it's like, man, like, why did you see him as Black? And I just think like he was this hip character again, embodying these stereotypes of what Blackness is. He was this hip character, right? We saw him being the one playing basketball. We saw him being the one dancing. And there's a clip I'm going to play of him like teaching Doug how to dance. So we saw him being like this hip character who could dance, this hip character who can play basketball. And then it was an episode, and I couldn't find a picture of it, where he was just changing his shoes throughout. So this man had like 5 pair of shoes and they all was fly. So like he was a sneakerhead in that same sense. So I'm like, man, like I'm looking at all my cousins at that time growing up. I'm like, sneakerhead, basketball, he's dancing, he's beatboxing. Like this is a Black character, although he's not Black. So I do want to play this character, play this clip, and then we'll see if like anyone wants to add on to whether or not we should claim Skeeter.
First you move your arms like you got an itch you can't reach. And then you bend your legs like you're in an earthquake.
I got something to say if you don't mind on that Skeeter thing, man. I grew up off the 90s, man. I'm 35. And I grew up off these cartoons that you're talking about. So, you know, me being on the block and chilling with my homeboys, I go about how we looked at it that way. And we all looked at these characters as Black. There was no question about it. It was, you call it assuming, spooning, whatever you wanted the assumptions to be. We all my homeboys, I don't even got to ask them. I'll be like, do you think Skeeter was Black? They'll say, yeah, off rip. And I kind of agree with Corey of how I dislike the way they actually did it in a color formation in a different color. I do agree with that. I don't think that was right in that aspect. It is kind of like they've been doing that into the culture of, you know, me being light skinned. I mean, I get hit from my Black peoples and my white peoples. I get hit from both sides because I'm light skinned. Like I can walk into a white neighborhood and I get looked at wrong. I can walk into an all Black grocery store and I get looked at some kind of way wrong. I've felt it from both sides. I understand it, I acknowledge it, and I understand how the assumptions work. And growing up with these cartoons that I was raised off of, Rugrats, Doug, Scary Monsters, you know, there was a lot of that, you know, picking characters and choosing your character as you wanted them to be you. Like when I watch X-Men, I want to be Wolverine, you know, or something like that. But it is kind of sad that the way they use color in a different way, instead of just, you know, be brown or Black. That was it, you know, and kind of arrange that. And it's what evolution is. It's what history is. This is what I study, especially in Black studies, is how nothing is given. As many people can acknowledge this. I don't know who the creators are. I didn't do any research like you probably did, Marquice, but I'm sure if I studied it, like you said, these were made by white people. So you can only acknowledge that the fact that these characters were imagined and created by somebody else's culture to look at a different culture and then acknowledge it in a way of trying to say, nah, this wasn't really Black. But I mean, if we wanted to look at all the description of it, you would probably say, yeah, the pinpointing the describing it would be some kind of way of color or Black, whatever the case may be. So I kind of agree with Corey on the disliking of the way they put out the character. I'm interested in the third character. I'm gonna leave that on that one. So.
All right. I think we should go ahead and move on. Anybody want to add on to Skeeter before we go? And I do want to note down here at the bottom, there's a quote from the actual creator of Doug. I can't really read the quote because my screen. All right. It says, for pretty common knowledge, Skeeter was African-American, he said. And that I love that because I did not consciously set out for that to be the case. He just looked good blue. So the creator.
I don't like that. What the RA say? I don't like that. I don't like that.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
Like, he didn't create Scooter.
Neither do I, Corey. I don't like that.
He didn't create Skeeter to be Black, but like somehow he embedded these Black stereotypes for Black people to internalize and say he's a Black character, you know? So it's just like, that says a lot about the creator. That's probably like a whole nother conversation.
Just a comment real quick. I mentioned earlier about identifying with things, and the gentleman, I don't remember his name, the Latino gentleman who was just talking. When we were growing up, I think as kids, we just yearned to have somebody to identify with. Like, even though we didn't have an official Black person on Doug, it was nice to see this boy Skeeter who could play ball, was a sneakerhead, was super cool. That was me in that show. That's the person I identified with being Black. So even though he was green, deep down, we knew he was a brother.
True. True. I definitely say that. All right, let's go to the last character.
First, you move your arms like you got an inch you can't reach.
All right, and finally, this character is pretty new. I don't know if anybody, I see somebody got excited. I don't know if anybody watches current cartoons, because we're probably all, a lot older, but this is Darwin from a TV show on Cartoon Network, The Amazing World of Gumball. So as we can see, if you don't know, Darwin is an orange goldfish. Clearly he has arms and he has legs. He was adopted by this family. He was Gumball's, which is I guess we call him a cat, the blue cat. He was adopted by the family. He was once Gumball's pet fish, and he was adopted by the Watterson family. And then he just became part of the Black community somehow. Like, I don't even have answers to this. And it's just like, we as Black people just accept Darwin. I can't even figure out why we accept Darwin. And the crazy thing is, as a 30-year-old, I accept Darwin too. But I don't know why I accept Darwin. Cartoon Network kind of confirmed that this orange goldfish, again, was Black. They released a Kwanzaa poster. And as you can see, these are all Black characters. There's Craig by the Creek right here. And then they put Darwin on this poster and said Happy Kwanzaa. So is that Darwin confirmed to be Black since he's on this Kwanzaa poster? And then Cartoon Network actually retweeted this, I believe, is a fan-made picture of what they think Darwin and Gumball should look like. And Darwin is clearly this dark-colored, brown-colored character with this orange hair. They retweeted it again as them confirming that this character is Black, although no one in this show is of human race. Everyone is an animal. There's clouds, there's a donut, there's all these crazy characters, but no one's of human race. So why, if y'all can help me out too, I don't understand why do we accept Darwin so much?
I don't know the answer, but I'm interested in Darwin's name, and so is it a similar thing with Doug where they placed Blackness on this character to appease the audience, to make them have more watchers, whatever, or did they create Darwin? Because if they did, I don't know, because like Shane mentioned, Darwin then was an enslaved fish that so it's you're gonna make that person a Black character. I don't know, that don't sound right. But also Darwin, the name, and it's a fish, does that have anything to do with creative or evolution? And did the white people who created say, oh well, all Black people were the evolution? I don't know which way to spin it, but I don't like that.
But I will say in the chat, someone asked, do voice actors make the characters Black? Darwin has 2 voice actors currently. Both of them were and are Black. Doug and Piccolo were voiced by white people. And so that's a good question. Does it matter? Because not Doug, Skeeter and Piccolo were voiced by white people, but we still claim them. So it matters to some extent. That probably helps justify for Darwin, but that didn't stray us away from claiming Piccolo and Skeeter.
Can I say?
Yep.
I think Darwin just literally, he's just the traditional token character that America has been portraying for years. And it's just like, it's so traditional that you need that character. You know, he's the Waldo from Family Matters. He's the Cole from Martin, and the Go Home Roger from Sister Sister. It's just like that character that you kind of need the you know what I'm saying? Like to just wrap it up.
So he's like the butt of the joke character.
Basically, I guess.
So he should be black because he's the butt of the joke character.
It's usually portrayed by black characters.
All right, I'll take it.
Man, we brainwashed. That's what it comes down to.
Wait. The way I describe a token, I'm sorry to cut you off, brother, is this beautiful nothingness. Like everything they say is so irrelevant, but it's like so perfect, but it's just, it's irrelevant to like what the actual problem is. Like, but yeah, I'm sorry, cut you off.
I know Clay got his hand up.
I think we were brainwashed to the TV. The way I was going at it from a documentary that I read probably like maybe last year, a year and a half ago, about Michael B playing Superman. And I remember reading this and how we were raised off of thinking, you know, a lot of Black folk and Spanish folk want to be Superman. When you grew up in that days, you want to be Superman, but he happened to be a white guy with black hair. So you couldn't tell, obviously he was white. But when they had announced that Michael B wanted to be the character, I thought it was a great idea. For one, he's a great actor. Two, I think his motive would have been stuck out, but people were looking discreetly on the race. And it was just like, this just opened my eyes to why I think just having a bunch of education about what's going on and sharing this with not only with me being involved with CME, but outside of the neighborhood and with my real life friends that are outside every day and my family members, to share this knowledge to them of how brainwashed we are. Because it doesn't matter what color, it doesn't matter what race or culture. These design characters were made from back in the days, and they, like you said, this guy was supposed to be this character, and if he's this character, he has to be Black. But if you was to come into like my family and see that we're all mixed, and some of us just stick with one more root on this side than the other, and how this uncle plays this part and how my aunt plays this part, and the rich side versus the poor side, we can see that this is what the TV has put in our brains. And it's something that for myself, and I hope others see as well, can't force horse to the water field, but I can tell a lot of people are brainwashed from television and how these characters are brought up. And I hope that's something that even now for Hollywood, because I know Hollywood is kind of, out there, but I hope now that they continue fighting on just putting, as much as mix as possible and just throwing it down these people's throats. Because I think that if not last year during this COVID stuff has not opened anybody's eyes, I really think that's that person, you cannot change their mentality of whatsoever. You can't teach that person different, but we can help the younger crowd now get involved in just making everything completely non-racial on a subject, just being who you are and an acting character, mentality. And I hope it gets there. I hope it does. But even as Darwin, I mean, the name, the funniness that the punchline that he brings to just like Family Matters and stuff like that. I think that it's just like, that this character has to be depicted that way. It's what needs to go away, actually, to be honest, because it's not being looked at in a positive way. It's being looked at in a racial way. And that shouldn't be the first thing these characters being looked at. I think, obviously, yeah, we grew up to picking one character, but I can be fully just one race and want to be the other race. If that was the case, that's what's going on now. But why does it have to be looked at that way? For one, Wolverine is Canadian. Do I want to be Canadian? No, I don't. I'll be quite honest. I don't want to be Canadian, but I like his character. I like how the toughness of it, and I can bring that up for days and describe his patterns of, similarities to mine. Him getting the girls on the side and all that stuff. And then, him sometimes getting beat up by it. I mean, that was just the way the case was flowing. But yeah, I think that's what television has done, man. It's brainwashed us. So is so is the music. If you ask me, I think if you could bring up another subject in the CME, it would be, how do you feel music wise? You know, why is it that, you know, it's taking long for Black artists to come out in heavy metal or country? And when they do, it's like a big punchline into this kind of music culture. When a lot of the music comes from Africa, we all know the root of music comes from African beats, you know, drumsticks and stuff like that. And the way it's been prolonged for so long now, that when people look at these descriptions in each character, there's something about it. And I personally have always liked every kind of music. And I have a lot of my friends and family who've liked every kind of music. But there is that racial thing going on, or even gender too sometimes.
Definitely.
But it's like,
indeed.
Go ahead, Corey.
No, I know that Clay and Ty, and then Aponte said something dope I want him to read, but go ahead, Clay, and then go ahead, Ty.
I wanted to speak about when it comes to like claiming characters as part of the Black community. I don't remember if somebody said this, but in terms of like Piccolo and like the Namekians, they're essentially like supposed to be seen as Black, and Frieza is supposed to be like a white supremacist. Like he came in and like, well, Frieza is basically a white supremacist. He did it to the Saiyans and the Namekians, but we see it more so with the Namekians, where he like came into their planet. He wanted something from them. They said no. He took it, and if anyone tried to like stop him, he killed them on the spot. And there was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And another thing about Piccolo is what some people don't know is that Piccolo is a junior. His dad is Demon King Piccolo, and Demon King Piccolo was like a ruthless murderer. So Goku killed him, and Piccolo Jr. was like born, and he tried to like follow in his dad's footsteps. But a way that I kind of related to, not related to him, but some people relate to Piccolo in the sense like his dad was seen as like a real bad dude, and some people, well, some Black kids, their dads were like seen as essentially bad people because they might have like committed a crime or something, and Piccolo had to find his own way, like how a lot of other kids do, without his dad, and he ended up, you know, turning over a new leaf because he saw that what his dad did was like the wrong thing. So I think that contributes to one of the reasons why we accept Piccolo in to like as a part of the Black community, and the Namekians as well, because they went through the same type of struggle that we went through. And I think it was not, I don't want to like compare it to like what Black people went through by comparison, because it was like probably nowhere near, it's definitely nowhere near as bad, but it was like both Black people and the Namekians had pretty much a white person come in, take what was theirs, and kill them if they had any qualms about it, and then just keep walking. So yeah, that's all I really gotta say.
I just wanted to touch on like two things. One was I feel like everybody was talking about how Darwin was like the butt of the joke and he was like their pet and all. I remember watching the show when it came out, and I'm gonna be honest with you, half the characters in the show are like the butt of the joke. I remember the cop was a donut, and that was like the whole joke with this character was he was lazy and a donut. The main character is kind of like super selfish and irresponsible, and they actually painted Darwin in a better light, if I remember, where it's like Darwin was the more compassionate of the two. I feel like we painted him in almost the worst light when we first described him as like he was their pet and he was the butt of the joke, but the show kind of painted a lot of characters as a joke. And I remember like when the show started, him being a pet wasn't really a thing. That was a thing they kind of brought up later, just as a like, oh, how did a fish end up in a house full of cats and bunnies was like the thing. So I feel like some of the criticism might be a little bit unfounded or just misplaced. That being said, I think there are definitely points in the show where it's like, okay, maybe this was a bad idea to add in, like making him a pet. But, you know, and then the other thing was somebody kind of said like, why does it have to be about race with characters? I think that it's like, as adults, it's very easy to think like, why do we need to put a race to this character? But for kids, I feel like there's not like a signifier for kids to understand like how their race impacts them or like where that kind of leads. And I think because a lot of people here who talked about Black characters they related to, like Static Shock, I remembered recently with Black History Month, like, man, I related to that character a lot as a kid purely because he was Black and I didn't understand the difference between Black and white, but I understood that that was a character that looked like me that I didn't see much. If anybody watched Teen Titans as a kid, I remember watching that and thinking, oh, Cyborg's a really cool character. Not really putting two and two together. They're like, oh, I relate to him because I look like him. There's a very visual aspect as kids to how we kind of relate to things. And I think that making sure Black characters appear in media is really important, in particular for kids media, because it normalizes it and lets us have something to relate to that as adults we don't really recognize as much as we do as kids.
Corey, didn't you say one more person has something?
I mean, he don't have to. He didn't ask to, but he said something dope in the chat. I don't know.
Let me scroll up and see what he said. Oh, here he is right there. The headphones.
Muted as well. Darwin is a very, very musical character, but he also resonates with long-time stereotypes within the Black community and how other people viewed us before. At some point, while like many people mentioned that Darwin was compassionate, he was also the very loud and musical character at many points in the show. And from even research I did a long time ago about, you know, how in the 1930s, how many people viewed us then and how they still view us the same way today with their media, cartoons all over, you know, and
Hey, what happened?
The feds, he was getting too real. They had to cut him off.
Oh,
Watching,
whoever was watching his webcam.
He doesn't mean it. Oh.
See, there he goes again.
You on his hotspot?
I'm sorry, my headphones keep me out. But yeah,
Go ahead. Say what you were saying. You were spitting facts. Go ahead.
Darwin is just a very, like I said, he's a very musical character, and I think the reason why a lot of people assumed that he was Black was because just the way he was. I mean, just like many other characters, like people talked about Piccolo, resonating with him, even though he wasn't Black and he was literally green. None of these characters are of the human race whatsoever, but yet somehow we identify with them because we are still people at the end of the day. And when we see people that are like us, of course we're going to be drawn to them naturally. Do I feel like they took advantage of that? Do I feel like a lot of cartoons take advantage of that? Yes, they do. You know, once they seen the Black community identify with Darwin a lot more, especially, that was my childhood around that time. So seeing Darwin on screen was like representation in some form of manner. But then you realize how negative it is as well.
Hey, I'm agree with that guy. Hold on, can I say something real quick?
Go ahead, right ahead.
Because like he's spitting facts. Like sometimes I see qualities that I like or could see myself doing, it attract me to them. Like Undertaker, that man is clearly white. Yo, that man strolled to the ring, dog. I'm like, yo, that's a Black man, dog. I don't care what nobody say. Undertaker is a Black man, dog.
I know what you're saying, but I'm gonna challenge you on that because I love Undertaker too.
Let me finish.
I never saw him as a Black man. Even with it was either like the dead man walking or him strolling up with his motorcycle.
Motorcycle. And then listen, Undertaker.
I never saw him as a Black man.
Undertaker pulled the craziest joint all the time. He come out of nowhere, the whole stadium Black. Come out of nowhere, Undertaker standing right there, and then he'll dip. I'm like, that's a Black man. He too damn cool, dog. Like, I don't care what nobody say, but at the end of the day, Black, like I love being Black by the end of the day. I'll be hugging myself. But yeah, it's so crazy because I mean, we see different, it's kind of hard to not try to incorporate some of our coolness, I guess, because we everywhere, yo. Like I was looking at the job application the other day and it said Black, specifically from the origin of Africa. And I'm like, that made me start thinking. I was like, listen, I don't really know what I am, like ethnic wise. That's why I should say I'm black. But I'm like, yo, like we really from everywhere, yo. That's the crazy part.
Marquis, for getting
That's
this recorded, you gonna go to work for like the NAACP in 10 years and they gonna watch this video.
But yeah, I was just like, yeah, I mean, like what Ponte was saying, like, but black people, we do try to reach and make everybody a part of the community. Like, what did Dave Chappelle say? We elect Tiger Woods a part of the black community for shizzle. But yeah, I got a bit.
All right, word. Yo, we appreciate you coming, Marquis. I'm gonna let Marquise finish up. I know we're at the closing end.
Yeah, we got a couple more. So I'm gonna try to. So I did share some. I shared this information on Facebook. Just wanted to see what other people have said. As you can see on the screen, certain people just did not know why. Like Pump was like, for Darwin, Darwin's black. I don't know why. Piccolo, Darwin are black. It's just the vibes. Even someone else pointed out that, you know, Piccolo, but that's because of the brainwashing that we've been like doctrined to. I even asked like, what other characters? And it's crazy. I'm not a Transformer person, but this character right here, they said he's black because he turned into a stereo. And it's just like, that says a lot about how we observe ourselves. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like there's buses, they turn into what, helicopters, all this stuff the Transformers turn into. Like you said, this person is black because he turned into a boombox. Like
no.
I thought that was mind blowing when they told me that. And then of course, Pietro from Thundercats. I mean, this man clearly has like black features. And he's voiced by a black actor. This was the grandfather from the Cosby Show, the original voice actor. So it's easy. I can see why people would say like they think he was black just because of his features and his voice actor and what he embodied. I wouldn't lie if I said I thought he was cool growing up, and yes, I claimed him as part of the black community when I was a child. Couple more. So characters and stereotype facts as we finishing up. So a Boston professor, let me see how I minimize this so I can read it. A Boston professor analyzed that over 1,000 characters within 20 children's shows and concluded that only, as a typo, 42 were black. And then a Truff article states that children were quickly to judge, and there's a relationship between low self-esteem and negative portrayals of racial types. Although these characters that we just observed didn't portray, for say, a negative stereotype, I do want to point out that they were second in their characters, right? None of these characters that we looked at were first. They all were the sidekicks, the second thought. There was a main character, and they were just they was like Doug. Skeeter was Doug's best friend. Doug was the main character. They were a second character. So it's important that we think about that when we say these people who are black. Like we're never claiming the main character. We're always claiming the sidekick. So what does that say about us and how we view society? So then that led me to just think about tokenism. Tokenism is a situation that handicaps members of a racial or ethnic group who find themselves working along or nearly alone among members of another society. One thing I want to point out is stigma consciousness. So stigma consciousness refers to the extent in which people expect to be stereotyped. So when we watch these shows, I feel like we have that stigma consciousness, so we expect to be stereotyped. So we find these stereotypes for us to be comfortable while watching these shows. So we're looking for these characters who are like, I guess, the non-main color, whether they're green, or whether whatever. We're looking for these non-characters because we expect ourselves. And how do we find ourselves? We find ourselves by observing these stereotypes first. We're not necessarily looking at who's directly Black, because that's just, let me see the chat. All right, people are posting it. And then concluding, I want to conclude that representation matters. We have so many characters who are indeed Black. So many shows that are written by Black people. We got the Proud Family coming out with the Louder and Prouder. That's a great show. We have the Boondocks, who was supposed to get a reboot that dropped last year, but we know COVID happened. So hopefully that reboot is still, and even with Witherspoon's passing, hopefully something still comes out of that. Boondocks reboot. And of course we have Gerald, Code 5. I don't remember the character's name from As Told by Ginger, but we have these Black characters. So it's important that when we analyze characters, that we don't analyze based off of stereotypes, that we analyze based off of just, I guess, visibility. So if you want to claim somebody because you connect to them, if you connect to Piccolo, you can connect to Piccolo. But let's not claim Piccolo because he's Black, because he's not Black. We have Black characters. We deserve more than just like color coordinated stereotypes. We deserve so much more than that. So when we move on from here and we see these new shows, let's remember that we are more than just a stereotype, and that's what we deserve. And then that's it for me. Any questions or anything?
Yeah, this was dope. Any final questions? I know we're over time, but I want to let this flow because this was definitely one of, a dope, engaging conversation that Marquice led us through, and that you all participated in. So I know Justice is on. What's up, Justice?
Hey, yeah, I think it's kind of crazy because like the media kind of like made it seem as though like Black people is like this monolith that we can't be like individuals within ourselves. Like we have to be like rappers or gangsters and stuff like that, and that we can't really stray off from that path because of how we're really portrayed through the media in very low representation. Because like white people, they don't really like crave or want representation because they have white creators who basically portray you as anything. You can really be anything. You can be a Superman, you can be a Batman, you can be really anything you really want, like any spectrum, any industry, any sector. But we're kind of like condemned to this one, more ethnic tied, stereotype, like persona, which I think like a lot of us, we kind of yearn for like different things. Like maybe someone wants to be like a piano player or a musician or something entirely. And I think that creativity and that different spectrum that is something that we need, so that we can also like, because that also breeds innovation. And also this also allows for like, because like I know like for me, a lot of people say I'm white because like I quote unquote speak proper, or or I don't know how to play basketball or something like that. Like we're kind of like pushed, like even with among ourselves, we're kind of like pushed to this narrative that we have to be a certain way, which I think is like, I'm an individual, like just like Corey's an individual, right? Like I have my own personality, I have my own struggles and so forth. And I think we're only like really condemned to this kind of like narrative, which I don't think is like accurate.
Indeed, thank you. So if no one else has any questions, real quick, remember,
I think Danielle want to add something.
Oh yeah, please go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to add something that like I really appreciated your presentation, Marquice, and then also like all of y'all's input too on like the discussion of like what Blackness is, and then also taking upon like this discussion of like what representation is and how we just don't need just representation or any kind of representation just because, but we need a kind of representation that I guess centers us, that actually shows us as who we are. So I really do appreciate this conversation that centers like why it's important for to be intentional about creating Black characters. Yeah, and to show like it center our perspectives and our identity. So thank you.
When is your workshop, Danielle?
Oh,
and what's
so
it on?
My workshop is next Monday. I think what something that was really interesting earlier was when I don't even know if Marquis is still on here, but he talked about how he's interested in he identifies with pimping. I was like, oh, that's really interesting because I like to talk about that a little bit next week. But I'm basically talking about like intersectional identities, like what does it mean to be really pro-black, but also with that like being not just like just baseline black, but having black and these other intersecting identities. So what is it like to be queer and black, a woman in black, being a masculine man in black, a feminine man in black, right? So it really sparked my like my presentation. One day I was like on Facebook and Twitter, and I always see like a lot of these memes and arguments between black men and women, like y'all don't really want a black man unless he got all this money. Like, what's up with that? Y'all black women only da 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 da, or black men don't really want us unless we look like Meg the Stallion. We gotta have real big behinds and weave down our backs, right? I just see a lot of this like discourse and like tension between black women and men in the black community. So that's just something I really want to discuss for next week, talking about feminism, homophobia, all these things I just want to tackle. So I hope y'all are able to join and engage with me next week as well.
It's going to be juicy. I can't wait.
I'm excited. I'm excited.
Wait, what time is it on next week?
Please tell us what time is it?
It's 4:30. Yep.
Okay.
Time 4:36.
Keep an eye out for your remind me texts and your emails, not just for for the life skills events, but for the CAP program that Shane runs, for the mental wellness programs that Al runs, and for the leadership programs that Pat runs. We have a lot of dope events for you. So make sure you check your emails. Again, if you want this to count towards one of your events, make sure you RSVP to Pride Portal, because then you'll be asked to do a post-evaluation survey. Like was mentioned, this is one of the most engaging programs we've had. So this is obviously working. So let us know how we can do more programs like this. So we can make sure that we're always building each other up, and we have each other to hold us accountable. So again, thank you so much, Marquice, for leading us.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
If anyone wants any more information about connecting with you, how can they reach you? Can you put it in the chat?
Yeah, let me put my hold on, where's the chat? So I'm not familiar with this.
At the bottom near your share screen.
All right, I got it.
You a whole teacher out here.
We use Google Doc. We use Google Meets. We don't use. All right, yeah, I'm gonna put my Instagram on here. So again, I go by I identify as a Black nerd. So my IG is the Africana nerd. Just I believe like that fits me. And then I'm gonna put my email as well. So then like if y'all have anything I want to talk about.
Indeed. Did you?
Right, there we go.
Any last questions before we bounce? Comments?
No, but thank you. This was a very fruitful conversation to have.
Hold on. Yeah.
I think
thank you, like I said, thank you, Corey.
Oh, of course. Of course. Al, Shane, or Pat, do we have any next tomorrow? I don't have it in front of me.
You said what?
Yeah, tomorrow we have one of the financial programs. So tomorrow we'll be having a program at 1 on creating a budget for your finances and just going over like different ways to open up bank accounts and things like that. So I'm going to send out the link tomorrow morning, but that's at 1 o'clock tomorrow on Zoom.
Cool. I appreciate y'all. Thanks again, Marquice. We'll see you all tomorrow and next Monday for Danielle. So I appreciate y'all. Anything you need, email, text us, call us.
Alrighty. This was wonderful. And thank you.
Indeed. Peace, y'all.
Everybody have a wonderful evening.
Y'all too.
Have a good night.
Good one.
Yo, dope job, Marquice. he bounced. All right, Lamar. All right, Kadir. All right, Gabe.
All right, Corey. Oh, always a pleasure to see you, my friend.
Man, nah. Pleasure is mine, bro. Peace.